All right.
We're live.
We're not technically alive. Hello, everyone. This is something that I've been wanting to do for a very long time.
Me too.
Talking with, of course, you have. You just want to be in the spotlight. But this is finally a time where me as a host, I can talk to someone who is a part of the game about the game. This is an interview with the Victor's Valiant winner, Alex Tarowski. Give yourself a round of applause, Tarowski.
Oh no, you give one for me. I'm not
Okay.
gonna. I'm gonna be a little humble here.
I mean, by telling me to give you a round of applause,
Yes,
that's still
exactly. Yes.
give me a round. Anyways, this should be really exciting. I know a lot of people wanted to hear from you, Tarowski, specifically. Obviously, you won, but also a lot of the game was kind of revolving around a lot of the stuff that you were either taking part in or watching, very close by. So there are other interviews that will be coming out, throughout the off season. But for now, I have a lot of questions to get in to ask you specifically. I know some of the answers, but a lot of them I also just want the public to know. So we're gonna recap a lot of your game. I'm gonna ask you questions from the beginning to the end about everybody. Are you ready, Tarowski?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
We're gonna start before even the game. Okay.
All right.
We're gonna start with the casting process because this is my favorite story of everything. Whenever I get to talk about the casting process, I and Claire did not know going into this that you and Thal were roommates. Did you know? I guess this is just a question.
Yeah.
For me specifically, did you know that Thal had? Sorry, by the way, everyone. I am in a coffee shop right now. This is Claire. This is not my house. You see I do not live like a hoarder. Did you know that Thal was also having this interview? And what did you guys think your chances were after each of you had kind of the Skype interview with me?
Well, yeah. I mean, it was our plan together to apply together and be on the show. But we, of course, didn't want to tell you because we were afraid that if you knew that we were friends, you wouldn't have us both on. You would maybe have to end up choosing between the two of us. So we decided to not tell you until after we were both already cast. And what was the other question?
I don't even remember. I think it was just
did we think the interviews went well? Something like that?
Yeah, just did you think?
We were in communication the whole time. We read over each other's applications.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. I remember he said his interview went well, and I remember telling him I thought mine went well, and I guess that they did. You tell me. Did you think they went well?
Yes. So that's my other thing. I needed to ask you a question about your specific Skype interview. Okay. So for those of you who don't know, we had a big screening process where we had out of the 130 odd applicants, that was just like a text-based application. The rest of it was about 30 to 40 people we did Skype interviews with, just a good 15 minutes around there. It depended. And with yours, Tarowski, you were in this it felt like you were in this dark cave. I didn't know where you were. There was a single light. It felt like it was.
It was just my computer screen that was shining on my face. That was the only light. I had the lights off.
Did you purposely do that?
It was
want to come off.
Well, I didn't do it for the aesthetic, but it was late at night, if I remember correctly, and my roommates were asleep, and I didn't want the light in my room to maybe bother them or wake them up. Sorry, by the way, I'm sick, so I don't have much of a voice.
I mean, I'm in a coffee shop. You're sick.
Yeah,
just perfect.
So yeah, I had the lights off. Yeah,
it from the get go. I think I just had this interview with you, right? It wasn't Claire and I, because most of the interviews were with all three. It'd be me, her, and whoever would be.
Oh, I actually didn't even know that because my interview was only you.
There you go. Okay, yeah. So yeah, Claire couldn't make all the interviews. She was I think he was on vacation at the time, somewhere, so she wasn't able to make a lot of them. But with you, yeah, it was just me and you. And I remember telling her right after our interview was done, I was just this dude's a psycho and we need him. like you were like a serial killer, and it was so funny. Like
Well,
from
it
the get, you
worked,
were like,
I
yeah,
guess.
you're like smiling, and it was in the dark, and okay, so I thought I thought you chose that on purpose, but you're just, I
Well,
guess,
what did you think of
naturally.
my actual answers, or did you just like the darkness?
Oh no, I didn't just look at the lighting and say, oh, this guy. No, I mean, again, this is your interview, but from the casting process, we asked specific questions that would just allow people to either tell stories or talk about themselves for a long period of time. If you answered the question short, then we knew you were able to have good confessionals. But you had, we could already see the confessionals, or at least I could see the confessionals going through, and clearly you were, the evil guy for most of the game. So it definitely stayed true. But yeah. So that was very interesting. I thought that was just you wanted to make me like scared in a good way. But okay. Okay, so yeah, so we didn't know that you and Alex knew each other. I think like
Right.
I think it was like a week
Yeah,
beforehand.
there was you had emailed everybody saying just give me like your address and contact information or something. And when I responded to that, I said this is my address in Ann Arbor, and it's the same address as Alex Thal, who you also cast, just so you know.
Oh
And
my
that's how we
god.
broke the news to you.
Yeah, you I think you might have texted me instead of email or something like that, and you're just like, hey, by the way, this, and then also we're not going to be telling anybody.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah,
immediately
we
like,
definitely needed to make sure to have you in on it beforehand so you wouldn't spill the beans.
right, because again, like if that was a twist, we may or may not have said something.
Right.
But since you guys just had that, we weren't going to like pull anything or say anything either way.
Right.
And yeah, you told me that, and I immediately called Claire like we either struck gold or something. But this, out of all these people, we happened to cast both of you that lived together. I couldn't believe it. Yeah, that was insane. But I guess that segues into nicely. I kind of wanted to ask, kind of leading into the game. You had talked about this in the confessionals that are actually made the show, where you showed up later than Thal and all that kind of stuff. And you even see you guys like kind of jumping around like beforehand. What were those like nerves and everything? I guess the week leading up, the day of, knowing you two are about to go in there and from the get go lie.
Well, that's the name of the game, Everyone's got to lie. But no, it was fun. I remember just being really excited. It was funny more than anything that we were doing this thing together and no one else was going to know about it. Yeah, I was really pumped.
Yeah, it was. I can only imagine too, just like the fact that it's raining. You're trying to like figure everything out.
Oh yeah, that's not. Yeah, it was like a torrential downpour that day when we left the house, which only added to the drama.
It felt like real Survivor. Everyone told me afterwards, they were like, "Did you plan it to be around when it rained?" I was like, "No." It was like that whole week was completely like dry, sunny, and it was like for 3 hours just when we were filming that. Well, 3 or 4 hours that we were filming all of that it rained, and it was just like the worst, but also best for atmosphere. But yeah. Okay, so tell me about the first conversation you had with All about the game after the competition. Right after everything goes down with the introduction. You guys get the same tribe. Do you guys immediately go home and talk? Like, what did you guys do?
I mean, well, yeah, well, actually, so remember in the first episode, the whole Neela tribe after the first challenge, we met up at Espresso Royale as a big group, and after that. So Kara, her house was a block away from Thal and mine. And so the three of us started walking in the same direction after Espresso Royale. And that was the birth of our Final Three alliance.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't filming. We weren't used to filming everything that we were doing at the time.
You would eventually get there.
Yes, we would definitely eventually get there. But yeah, so the first thing we did was the two of us, we talked to Kara and we basically established an alliance and we talked about other people, our first impressions, and then she peeled off and Thal and I went home and then we talked even further.
Did you just like, I bet you probably didn't even like sleep. that entire time. Like,
Yeah, I don't remember the first. I don't remember exactly what we were saying at first, but it was just a lot of excitement, a little nerves, uh, and I remember we were planning who exactly was going to start texting who. We were trying to cover as much ground as possible. Like I remember right after I texted Cooper, and he texted like maybe Jonathan or something, or Sarah, and then we became the individual point men for different people.
right. Because you guys, I mean, like you said, you originally wanted to be talking to different people.
Yeah,
To
we
do that,
we we actually we wanted to be put on separate tribes for that very reason. We wanted to be able to come into the merge with basically everybody in some capacity. But it
Right.
didn't work. Yeah, you took that from us.
Yeah, so sorry.
Didn't you? You originally had us on different tribes before you knew we were friends, right?
I think we did like the week beforehand because we already had Leia and Cooper. I think we might have had Leia and Cooper either on the same tribe. I don't know. There was like a mixture. Basically, it was hard once we knew that you two knew each other because we already had the Leia and Cooper relationship. We already know those two and
Right.
knew each other. So we kind of wanted to have best of both worlds. Have one duo that's on the same tribe and have one duo that's on different and get the different perspectives of both. It worked out that both made the merge, which was great. You guys all got to meet up separately. But yeah, I think you might have just because it's two Alex T's. Like it's kind of hard to differentiate already, but yeah. Okay, next up, start of relationship with Cooper. So this is something I really want to ask you about because obviously this made a lot of air, but what was that bonding point that you had with Cooper, and did you really see him as that strong relationship in that game that early on? I know it changed later, but it seemed like from all the confessionals you had, especially when Thal was talking to you and saying maybe Cooper isn't the most trustworthy, you still seemed like you were really close with him. Like, why is that, and how did that start?
Well, it started the first day after Espresso Royale when I texted him and I said, we should start talking and just basically open a line of communication. And we were also sitting next to each other at Espresso Royale. So I remember in the episode I was talking about how I'm not gonna put myself out there that much in the first conversation, but since he was sitting next to me, we were just kind of talking a little bit, just the two of us. I knew right away he's a smart guy. It was obvious. He was just a sound player, and I thought that would be someone I wanted on my side, and so I thought he was a good person to align with. And the first few weeks, I think that I was pretty honest with him, except for how I was living with Thal. But I was telling him,
and the idol.
Well, that came later.
Okay.
But the first few weeks at least, I was telling him a lot, and I think he was telling me a lot too. And he was talking to Akshay and Lavana, of course, and then from there, the six-person Neela Six came together very organically.
Right, and that kind of again, you're accidentally coming together with Thal.
Right.
Were you scared having that alliance with him? Did you kind of have cold feet because of that, or were you just like, screw it, like we're together now? Like, what was kind of that like?
Oh no, we were. It was always in the back of our minds, or even the front of our minds, that we're way too close already. We need to try to distance ourselves, but it was just really tough because we weren't going to be on totally opposite alliances. That would have been hard to pull off. I don't know. So since we were it's hard when you're living with someone to not come off like you two were working together. It's just really hard. And as hard as we tried, I guess we didn't do it that well.
I mean, there was even that part where you guys are in the car with Kara, and I think Thal says like T-Row instead of like.
Yes. Did you put that in the show?
If you go back and you check, You do. I think at some point that does happen. It's kind of glossed over.
I remember that happened. So it was the three of us in the car, and he called me T-Row, which is what my friends call me. And I like looked up. I was like, dude, and and Kara was like, oh, that's an interesting thing to call him or something. And I was just like, oh yeah, I just thought of it or something. Yeah, yeah, that was really funny.
Oh my god. Okay, I do want to get into the relationship with Kara
Yeah.
and all that. But first, something that interested me that I kind of saw in a couple different confessionals. Only Levana's really made air, but a lot of players were saying around like week 2/3 that you and Thal were getting maybe a little too relaxed, maybe too sitting on your hands. Was that really happening, or was that just your guys' strategy of making the rest of them think that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was part of our strategy. We didn't want to come off too threatening. We wanted to kind of, within the Neela Six, let other people at least think they're coming up with decisions, and we wanted to just be friends with everyone and make everyone as comfortable as possible. Yeah, let's talk about the Neela Six more.
Yeah, because that's like a really, it starts off with 3 trios really, and then the 6 forms, and it's pretty tight out the gate.
Yeah, it's pretty tight. I think that the show, that the edit didn't show just how tight we really were. So like Levana, I would have meetings with every few days, and
right.
She was someone in particular where the show didn't show me and her at all, but I was actually really close to her, and we were always checking in on each other. And then Cooper as well, and it was just a fun group, and I just want to get that across, that we just had a really good time playing together, the 6 of us, and I think that's why we all kind of came together.
Yeah, from an edit standpoint, obviously, if I make you guys also cohesive, it's going to be way too obvious that the other 3 are at the bottom. Once we get down to just Angela on that 3 of Sarah, Jonathan, and Angela, obviously some more.
And it was a free for all. Yeah,
right. But yeah, I did definitely see a lot of that stuff. I just didn't. I wanted to make sure you guys still. There was still talks all the time.
No, I'm not saying it as like an indictment on you or your editor or anything. I'm just saying.
Right.
Yeah, it was a really good group, and we.
You guys got food a lot. Like, I know you didn't record it that often, but you guys often. There's a lot of confessionals I know where you talked about it, but you guys didn't film it because you guys were just like hanging out, getting food together, different combinations of you two. Would you say personally that out of that 6, then, that Akshay would probably be the least that you had trust with, since you kind of had those connections with everyone else?
Yeah, I guess that's fair to say.
Okay, yeah. Because it seemed like, when Angela was kind of trying, or you guys were maybe roping in Angela, everyone was trying to, that you guys were maybe wanting Akshay out if you were going to flip on that other trio.
Right.
And then it kind of, there was talks of like maybe it should be Cooper even. But
by the time that we fully roped in Angela around, when Maison was going to all those tribals, at that point, had we gone to tribal again, it definitely would have been Cooper.
Gotcha.
But it wasn't always at that point.
Right. It seemed like, originally it was Akshay, and then we can get into that now, is that then you guys realize what's really going on in that. And I love the segment where you guys were in the car and you filmed you guys with Kara, and then you guys with Kara and Cooper, and then back and forth of him getting out of the car or getting into the car. And it seemed like around that time was when you guys really realized his game. You guys always knew he was a very good player, but that's kind of when it seemed to me, at least, that you guys were thinking about that. What was that like? Because like you said, your relationship with Cooper was always really strong, and now you're thinking about backstabbing. What was kind of the main for that?
I think everyone always knew from the start that Cooper was a game player, and that he was getting close to everybody, and that he was strategic, and that he was probably willing to lie to people. But because everyone knew that, it was less threatening. It was like, Cooper is doing what he's doing, but it's all right. We'll we all know it, and we'll be able to vote him out if we ever want to. But when we noticed that he was trying to pull in Angela, I think that's when we started taking it way more seriously, that he was actually a threat that was potentially going to gun for us sooner than we thought.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's. I wanted to, like, based on what the footage that I had, that's what I kind of assumed. But that's interesting. That's kind of the nail in the coffin was Angela. I mean, everyone was going to try and use her in some way. Akshay wanted to. You guys wanted to. Everybody was trying to. But I guess when you thought, like, at the end of the day, it might be you, Thal, Kara, and Cooper together.
Yeah.
Then when he decides he's not going to be doing that, then yeah. That's something that didn't really get touched on, but was that like a really solidified thing for at least it seemed like a week that you were going to maybe roll with Cooper, Kara, and Thal as a potential option within that 6? Okay.
Yeah, well, so Thal, Kara, and I were always a trio, and always would have been for as long as we were in the game. But I think we were trying out different people we would have wanted to be the 4th. That came out wrong. It came out way more pompous than I wanted it to be. But yeah, there was. I mean, me in particular, I think in the early stages of the game, I had a lot of trust with Cooper, and I would have been very comfortable with him being our 4th. Yeah, and then things went south pretty quickly with me and him.
Right. Yeah. Speaking on your relationship with Kara now, a question. You guys,
a fan question or a you question?
Well, this is I was asked this by one of my friends. So
okay. Yeah, I saw you look down when you.
Yeah. So this kind of goes hand in hand with the question I had. So, why didn't you tell Kara about the idol? And then why did you go to the length of even fake idol hunting?
Yeah. Wow, that was such a fun scene.
Oh my god. You even were like, I don't think that's a corner. Like, you were like you didn't have to go that far, and yet you did.
I know.
I loved it personally.
Yeah, but it was good TV, but it was probably bad strategy. I mean,
TV.
I mean, which you can never be so sure at the time, but it turns out Kara would have still never turned on us. But even so, I don't know. If you're in Survivor and you find an idol, it's usually in your best interest to not tell people, unless you live with the person, of course. Then you can tell them. But I was just playing it safe. I didn't want to tell anyone.
Did Thal want you to, or was it a mutual thing?
No, it was a mutual thing. But I ended up feeling really bad about it. And I had to come clean to her before anybody else. Like, there was a time around the double
when you were
double tribal and then the merge where I basically one person at a time was coming out to them that I had 2 idols and that I needed, and my whole strategy, and I needed to clear the air with her before anything else. And she didn't take it badly at all. She was just like, "Oh, I should have known," and that was that.
That's I wish I could have more Kara in the show so badly.
Yeah,
I really didn't have that much footage of her just because
she was so busy. Yeah,
she was very, very busy, and which was really sad, and also like it made our tribals like very different because we always had to like push it to a certain length because she had like at 3 a.m., 4 a.m. practice.
Yeah, and it sucks for the audience because she's awesome and she's funny, and if she did more confessionals, she would have been hilarious in them.
She just all the time was going like, "Oh," and like, "I don't know," like, but she, like, I know personally because I was always there. But a lot of people talking about Kara always will say that she is way more out there than you really think. Like, she is always very vocal about her, everything.
Definitely. She's someone that like won't take someone's shit if she doesn't want to.
Oh, it's so good, and it really fit well with your guys' dynamic too. And I know on one of the podcasts that we did during the season that a couple people were talking about, and I think this was Anders actually specifically, the Maryland host, who was talking kind of her and Angela at some point as like a satellite player. And I definitely, I will still
meaning what? Sorry.
basically that meant like they had their own game, they had their own integrity and their own moves and what they were wanting to do, but it felt like their games were kind of shifting depending on what your guys' game was doing. And that doesn't necessarily mean they were a follower, but they were kind of, you guys were finding the idols, or you guys were, having these secret relationships and stuff like that. And so she was kind of, a satellite to what was going on.
Sure.
And I definitely think, it doesn't necessarily give enough, credit to certain people's games when you call them that. But I also do think, like, just in terms of story-wise, I would definitely probably agree with that. But, that made it much, harder for you guys when she eventually gets rocked out and you guys are like, our best ally is gone. Like,
yeah,
so.
She really was the perfect ally. Perfect. I mean, she was with us 100% to the end. She told us everything. And from other people's perspectives, she was like, even though we considered it like a fully equal trio. Oh, excuse my voice. But other people did think of it as like she was our sidekick or whatever, and she was totally. I don't know if she was okay with that perception, but she was still with us even through that, and I was really appreciative of that.
And again, yeah, I think because she was so busy all the time that stuff is just going to happen. Like, she is not out making as many connections or maybe as many like one-on-one conversations with people as she wanted to, and so maybe that's why she's grouped in with you guys. But no, yeah, it did definitely feel like it was a ride or die situation.
Yeah.
Okay, something I really want to ask. Tell me about scavenger hunt for you, because we really didn't see too much scavenger hunt from you in the show. But what was kind of like tell me like the reveal of it? You kind of get a text message, and then tell me kind of how the day went for you, just kind of briefly.
If I remember correctly, you put out the scavenger hunt late at night, right? And then, so right away, all of Neela was planning what each person was going to do the next day.
Right. It was like a late night text sent to everybody.
Yeah, it was a big scramble, and and so that day I met up with Kara and Angela, and at that time it was one of the first times I had like spent a lot of time with Angela, and it was the first time I like talked a lot of strategy with her, and that's when she was talking about my friend saw this tall kid in glasses digging up the beach volleyball court. So we were kind of that was the beginning of my relationship with Angela and bringing her in. And of course, Thal already had begun that, but the full taking her in as our fourth. And she always wanted Cooper out right away, which is another reason that when we brought her in, that's when we knew that Cooper was going to be out.
Yeah, that kind of that.
Wait, you froze.
And Thal, Angela, and you is kind of when. What?
Maybe say that again. You froze.
Oh, you kind of had a froze moment too.
Okay.
Yeah, it felt like that relationship with Angela is really not only seeing Angela outright, maybe talking with Cooper a little bit more than you wanted. Once you start talking to her, and then eventually once Thal did, that's when the Cooper turn, I think, definitely happened. Yeah, no, that was.
Yeah.
I wish there was more footage during the scavenger hunt of actually. I mean, it's almost impossible because it's like 24 hours of you guys doing stuff. But I didn't know so much strategy happened during that. Like, I didn't realize that you guys talked during. I thought it was just all go go go. But obviously, you're going to talk strategy when you're all together.
Yeah, of course. And like I said, it was probably the first time that I talked strategy for an extended period of time with her. And of course, we were going all over campus, taking blue buses here and there, doing all these tasks.
I'm sorry about that too. Like, I know that was a lot to deal with, but
it was fun. I only missed a few classes for it. It's all right.
You did? Oh man.
Yeah, I said that in the show. I was like, I missed a class.
Oh, you're right. I know a lot of people ended up skipping certain things that weren't super important, and I know you were one of them. who a lot of the time would take precedent of Survivor Michigan
Yes,
before
and
anything
that was
else.
maybe one of the advantages of being a senior in the game.
True. True.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Okay. Actually, that's a good question that I should probably ask.
Uh-huh.
We actually had unlike a lot of, I mean, I don't know all of them, but unlike a lot of the other colleges, at least Maryland, it seemed like a very, very diverse, equally in terms of like grade cast. Did that change anything for you in terms of like relating with people? Like I know some people like, did you relate with seniors over freshmen more? We actually had like what the final 6 or 5 or something was like all final
I think everyone except for Leia, right?
final 6 was all seniors except for Leia.
Yeah.
Did that change anything for you?
Yeah, I didn't think so at the time. Of course, it made a difference for like Akshay and Lavana, who bonded over being freshmen right away.
Right.
But like, it wasn't like, I'm going to strategize with like Sarah and Jonathan because they're seniors. Obviously that's not what happened. Yeah, I don't remember thinking that it mattered that much. Yeah.
It just, I mean, the only thing we really.
Sorry. It didn't stop like me and Paul from bonding with, say, Akshay and Lavana right away. I thought right away that they were awesome and that I wanted to actually be their friends, and in addition to being their allies. And whether senior or freshman, it had nothing to do with it.
Gotcha. I know the only mention of it really in the show was out the gate when they were first trying to find alliances that
Right.
Mitch and Lays and then we're trying to be like, oh, should we maybe do seniors? But that kind of fizzled out real quick.
Right.
But yeah, okay. So I just want to know if that changed anything because I didn't know because like it's not a huge age difference, but it could be maturity or something like that. But if it wasn't, then I gotcha. Okay, so we got Scavenger Hunt, Kira, and then when did you realize Cooper? Oh, right, yep, we talked about that and the amazing car ride. You guys keep dropping the phone. I loved, like, I had to include that. Like, some people told me that they were like, "Oh, I love that part," and some people were like, "Why did you include them dropping it so much?" I'm like, because it's hilarious that it wasn't just once, but they kept putting it in the same spot and letting it fall. Kara just kept doing it, which I just love that was her. But yeah. Okay, let's talk about the summit because you are a huge focal point of this. So we have a reveal for the summit as well, just like we kind of do with the scavenger hunt, where you get just like this mass text. Did you know immediately that you wanted to go?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, if something was going to go down and presumably the delegates were going to make some sort of strategic decision for the tribe or for themselves, I wanted to be there and I wanted to have a hand in whatever that decision was going to be. So I was always going to try to get in there.
I know they. I don't know if it was talked about on the show. I think it might have been, but you talked with Cooper beforehand, right? Before you had the big Neela meeting, that you would probably do it together.
Yeah, we talked before. I don't remember who brought it up first, but we were basically at the end both saying we should be the two people that go, and that we should guide the conversation in a way that makes it the two of us. And so that's what we did.
What was kind of that? Because again, at this point is also when you're thinking about like turning on Cooper in general. What was the kind of glue that was keeping you all together? Where I mean, both tribes were kind of thinking about this of like, hey, if there's a swap, we need to put aside our differences and just like work together. Was it because Neela was close outright, or was there some other reason? Was it strategic? Was it like because it really did seem like Neela in that discussion was like really coming to like, hey, the benefit of the tribe is we all come to an agreement and decide who's going. We shouldn't do politics about this. Akshay and Cooper kind of have a little politic about it, like on their own, but Cooper already knows that he's talking with you and that you're going to go do it. So, was it like a benefit of Neela kind of thing going into this tribe swap, or did you have your own game in mind at like first and foremost?
Well, having my own game in mind and having Neela's game in mind as a group, I think aligned with each other. Because if there would be, because it was tied at the time, right? It was 7-7. So if anything happened that gave Maison an advantage, all of a sudden all of the Neelas are screwed. And so I think the answer to your question is both. Mostly I wanted to go because I wanted to make sure that nothing was happening behind my back individually, but also I definitely did have a strong sense of I need to make sure that all of my people are okay from this, and not
Right.
just me. Especially me, but not just me.
That's kind of how Matthew described it too. Where he was just
Yeah.
like me first, but you know, yeah, that's really interesting. We've seen the summit. We've seen talks about the summit on the show, and how you kind of fibbed a little bit about like, oh, I'm the next one going.
Oh, definitely. That was my whole strategy.
Were you going to do that outright from like the get go? That you were going to pretend that you were next?
Well, I had no idea what the challenge was going to be.
Right.
So, but
on the fly. Then.
Yeah, on the fly. It's just what I came up with, and they bought it.
Was there any way you were going to swap ever?
Maybe. I definitely didn't. I don't think anyone wanted to, but I tried as best as I could to kind of stronghold them into saying, I'm not going to tribal. I will swap before I go to tribal. So it's you guys or it's nobody, or it's swap.
Would you have rather had, so take the Maisons going to tribal out of the equation. Would you have rather gone to tribal again with a vote on you and Cooper, or would you have rather swapped with immunity for
I would have rather gone to tribal, of course.
Interesting. Okay, so you would rather take the automatic vote.
Of course, yeah. I knew at that point that Angela was already on our side. I don't remember if then it was already going to be Cooper, if it was still going to be like maybe Akshay. But no, I knew for sure it wouldn't have been me.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, you wanted them to obviously think that,
Yeah, that's why I was telling them that, yeah.
Right. Okay, so then we have, I guess, like really briefly, what kind of happens during this like Maison run going to tribal? Is it just talking with Angela, getting her on the side? Is there anything else before we get to the swap? At least from your game.
Right. I don't think anything changed too much besides the whole Angela thing. I mean, I guess at the beginning of that run, I wasn't really talking to her at all. But then by the time of the swap, I was fully playing the game with her. So I'd say that's the big one.
Gotcha. Okay. Speaking of big ones, let's talk about Snapchat Gate, because this is wow. So you guys, you and Thal, obviously, for those who don't remember, you guys were going to Christmas, Michigan.
Well, we were passing through Christmas, Michigan.
Gotcha. Okay.
We were going to Picture Rock.
Right. I just have to mention Christmas, Michigan, because my girlfriend brings it up every single day, because she goes there all the time. She used to go there all the time, especially, and she saw it in the show. She was just like, wow! She wants to talk about it all the time. But yeah, so you guys are going there. Tell me about, I guess, the whole situation from your perspective of it going down live, and then we can obviously get into the follow-up. But like, what happened in the hotel room, like all of that?
Yeah. So it was our friend Benji, who we also lived with. It was his birthday, and so we were all out. We went to a casino. We were just celebrating his birthday, and then at the very end of the night, we come back to the hotel, and Thal breaks the news to me. He just like sinks, both emotionally and physically, and he breaks the news to me, and it immediately kills the fun of the night. We were, as a friend group, we were all having such a good time, laughing and having fun, and then on a dime, it stopped, and all of a sudden, it was really serious, and felt really bad for Benji in the end that we ruined the end of his birthday night.
It's his birthday, and you guys are like,
we totally made it all about ourselves. But it was a big deal in the moment. It was this thing that we had been working toward for a few months now, and now all of a sudden, Thal might have made a mistake that cost us all of it. And we were incredibly lucky that it didn't come back to bite us.
How long, and we'll get to that, I definitely want to ask about that, how it didn't bite you guys in the butt. How long was it up for the Snapchat, like on his story?
Probably a few hours.
Wow. Oh,
but enough time for Akshay and Angela and whoever else to watch it.
So Angela sent wow, is that correct? She sent like back
something like that. Yeah.
Right. What was that like? Like, what did you guys send
I mean,
back.
it was horrible. It was. I mean, we
Dude,
were
they
being
were
so dramatic about it in hindsight, but in the moment, we were treating it like it was the biggest deal of our lives. And it was a nightmare. It was an absolute nightmare. I
how
was
did you
absolutely furious with it.
you talked about actually in the show what your guys' plan was and what you did at the actual swap when when everyone's
Yeah.
meeting up. But what did you say immediately to just like Akshay and Angela before what did you say happened?
Well,
Over did you Snapchat the back? Like what happened?
no, I think we left. I don't think he Snapchatted her back, but we left it alone at first, and our plan was to just treat it as casually as possible. Not be frantically apologize, not even apologize, but just like trying to explain ourselves. But just the next time everyone was together, we pretend to see each other for the first time since, and we're like, "Hey, that was crazy. We saw each other." And the plan was to be like open about it and seemingly transparent, so that no one thought it was fishy. We wanted them to think that it was a total coincidence and nothing more.
I don't even understand how you have the rest of your trip just thinking about that 24/7.
It was a really fun trip after that. Picture Rock is pretty beautiful. But we did kind of have that cloud hanging over our head for most of it.
Oh my god! Yeah, you kind of have to put it on the back burner, but still thinking about it. Yeah, for sure. So then we do get to the swap though, and you talk to everybody and all that. Tell me first about your feelings going into this. Did you want to be on a different tribe than Thal? I assume you probably did. And then afterwards, why was it that nobody reacted to this Snapchat gate?
Well, why wasn't no one reacted? I still have no idea, and
I have a little bit of
definitely should have. Oh, what is it?
Well, from what I've kind of heard, I just thought you might actually know. They might have told you, but I thought it was that they already knew you guys were pretty close within the game, anyways. They kind of assumed that you guys already really, we're a tight duo,
Yeah,
and so when I don't think they ever thought at the moment that you guys really were like you messed up and you were actually hanging out together or something like that. But I do think they were like, it doesn't matter because we already know they're close.
Yeah, and I don't think that. I mean, we've heard people say that a few different times about us or about other pairs in the game. And I think that's a little naive because there's a really big difference between being close allies in College Survivor and being literal best friends that do everything together and will never, ever, ever tell each other a lie.
Right.
I mean, to say, they're already close. I mean, because a normal close Survivor ally, you're still usually willing to turn on them for your own gain. But that was something that if they knew that we were closer than they thought, or maybe should have considered it more, or maybe did but didn't think much of it. I mean, they should have probably known to not take that lightly.
Right. Yeah, I just think it's a lot of just weird circumstances that, like, if I was in that position, I saw you two meet up, I wouldn't necessarily like question the story you're giving, but I would definitely question like, well, did they hang out like all that time afterwards?
Yeah, there really is such a big difference.
Right. I definitely agree with that. Okay. So we have the swap. We have everything that's going on. Tell me a little bit about that dynamic on New Maison, because we didn't get to see much of it just because we only had one tribal council with the other group, and then we had just the double tribal, so there was a lot going on there. I know there was this relationship with Cam that you can get into that it didn't really show. But what was what was the feeling going into New Maison?
I remember feeling okay about Angela and Cooper. At first, I was excited to have Angela on the tribe with me because we had like this new budding relationship, and we were gonna be able to test that further. And with Cooper, I was a little iffy because I was pretty fully turned against him at this point. But I still thought he trusted me and that he thought I trusted him, and so that would all be all right. As for the original Maisons, I'd say the first person I connected with definitely was Liz. right away we met up and we talked, and I think we just got a good vibe from each other. And she told me that like if there was ever a Neela, like a between the three of us that she wanted to work with, it would have been me. She was maybe just saying that, but I think it was true at the time. And then once I found my second idol, I basically had to tell the three of them that like, sorry, but it's not going to work out this time because I know I'm safe. And then the other person that I became pretty to very close to was Cam, which none of this made the show, but I worked Cam really, really hard and met up with him constantly, was doing everything I could to make him feel comfortable with me, including promising him Final Two, which, I think is something he really took to heart, unfortunately. That this wasn't in the show, but I guess maybe you want to say it.
Yeah, we can get into it.
We can get into it. Yeah.
This kind of leads into the double tribal. So this is the craziness of everything. And there's a million things we could talk about in terms of this. But I guess just for you personally, first we'll work our way to the camp thing, because this is actually a pretty big reveal, and it's sad that it couldn't make the show, but we have reasons why. So first off, we have the Neela meeting with the check mark.
Oh yeah.
Tell me all about that. Whose idea it was, all that kind of, and then what your thoughts were in terms of, do I want to reveal to everybody that I have this?
Yeah. So, I mean, at this point, everyone knows there's an idol, but no one knows for sure who has it, and everyone at this point has vehemently denied, including me, that they have it. And so the six of us all agreed to meet up at what's the name of that building again? So I haven't been to campus in a year. I forget.
I totally forget what it is. Where were you?
It was in like the science building.
Oh, Chem? I don't know. I don't even actually, to this day, I don't know where you guys were, just based on like the building.
It's the building that's right next to CCRB.
This is riveting for everybody else.
All right, we'll skip over this part. Like the Chem building or whatever.
It's probably it's Chem building.
Yeah. So me and Cooper were the first ones there, and I remember talking to Cooper, and when it was just the two of us, I was like, dude, I don't have the idol. Do you have the idol? Like, please, you got to tell me. And then, of course, I was just denying it. And then when the whole group got there and met up, I remember thinking to myself, like, damn, I really should tell them it's me. But since I was just talking to Cooper one-on-one beforehand and didn't tell him, I couldn't then just turn around and say, yeah, you know what, psych. So I had to keep up the charade, which was probably not the best thing to do.
In the end, like, you eventually start telling people, that you kind of have the idol, right? Because again, that doesn't make the show either. That you, before all the idol nonsense happens, you kind of tell some people.
Well, so that day, still Thal was the only person that knew. But by the time of the double tribal, before I actually played the two idols, I had to tell Kara and Angela. But I hadn't yet told Cooper and Akshay that I had a second idol. I ended up telling them each after the merge.
Right, and they already assumed
totally assumed it was me, so I had to come clean anyway.
Right. Everybody really kind of, except for Kara and Angela, knew what was going on.
Yeah.
But that's very interesting, and also it's interesting because Cooper was playing under that assumption already, and so if he didn't have that assumption already, who knows what he would have done.
Yeah.
So that week, from your perspective on your tribe, because Thal's doing his own stuff, you were trying to, based on the show, you were trying to get all the votes onto Angela, right? Because like you've been saying, you were trying to make everyone assume you were playing an idol for yourself.
Wait, before we get to this vote, can we talk a little bit about the second idol hunt?
Yes, because that's actually
none of that was in the show.
So Claire was there for the footage. I don't have that footage, so I couldn't. I really wish I had that.
That
was
scrambling. That whole scene was one of the things I was looking forward to most watching back. Unfortunately, It was such a funny and chaotic scene. It was just me and Thal, I think, for Neela, and then all of the Maisons there. Everyone's scrambling. I remember there's one point where I was like standing next to Liz and we were both looking, and she like lunged for something, and I thought she found it, and so I like totally boxed her out completely, and then just picked up like a pile of dirt that she was grabbing for. It wasn't even it. And then eventually I find the idol, and without even thinking, I'm just like, I got it. And I really wanted to watch that back.
I'm sorry. I really
No,
wish
it's
I
not
had.
your fault. I know it's not your fault. It was so fun.
It was very interesting that, I mean,
Yeah,
like they said in the show, you guys kind of not hid the information, but you didn't tell everybody the clue that you got,
yeah,
for that thing until a little bit later. Whereas Maison is telling each other, and they're like, "Let's go." And so, yeah, I definitely would have loved to have that footage, because I still to this day have never seen that footage of just
really.
all Maison looking for that idol, and
Should we
just
still ask Claire for it? Just
I mean,
for us to watch?
I don't think she has anymore, because beforehand it was, when we were transferring footage, we don't know where it went, because basically how all this started was that there was so much footage of that final challenge that mid-challenge Claire had to like transfer footage, go back to her house and charge stuff and all this, and I think it might have got lost in the shuffle. We don't know,
Damn.
but yeah, it's
Too bad. Yeah. And then afterward, I mean, there was a period of time where I was just walking around like swinging the idol back and forth, and all 6 Maisons were just so dejected, and I loved it. And then of course I met up with like Cam, Liz, and Leia, and because there had been talks with me and the 3 of them, like, hey, if it's a tie, I'm totally not going to rock. So you never know, I might be able to flip. But then in that conversation, I was like, yeah, there's no way I'm flipping now. Sorry, guys.
right.
And then, of course, I would end up telling Cam differently.
So let's get to Cam then.
Yeah.
So tell me about that, and then also if you want to talk about tribal council, what actually happens after he's voted off.
Yeah. So basically, like I said, I really wanted Cam on my side. I mean, I didn't go into it wanting to screw him over even. I thought he was a nice, cool guy that I could, I thought I would be able to work with well. And so I wanted to just form an alliance with him. And things happened fast, and I promised him things that I knew I couldn't keep. Um, and then going into the double tribal, with Liz winning immunity, and with Leia, everyone knew she had an idol. I realized that Cam was the one that had to go, and so I had to kind of concoct this plan where I push his votes onto Angela, and then I play the idol for Angela. So the story I told him was, so I was still keeping up this little lie to the Maisons that, Angela voted for me at the second vote. I don't trust her at all. She was on the bottom. I know she'll flip on me any second, when in reality I was working with her. But I told Cam that if you vote for Angela and it's a tie, I'll flip on the revote. And because I would rather lose her than you. And as I later learned from Liz, is that since Liz and Leia both knew they were going to be safe, they basically left the decision totally up to Cam. And Cam said, "Let's vote for Angela."
Wow.
So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that at the time either. Liz told me that after the game.
So in all of that, you basically had to tell Cam all that, or else in the end he wouldn't have chose Angela. He would have chose probably Cooper.
Right. I mean, and also, which I didn't know at the time, was Cooper was since he knew Leia,
right.
He was convincing Leia and Liz that I was going to play an idol on Cooper, and so that would make them vote to vote for Angela. So those two things in conjunction is what made them vote for Angela. And Cooper did a great job. I didn't even know he was doing it at the time, but I think everyone, and Angela too. Angela was great in making them think I was going to play my idols for myself. And I think everyone did their part in getting the three of them to vote for Angela. But I think probably the one that did the most was Cam thinking I was going to take him to the final two. And I felt really bad all week that I was playing him so hard that he was probably going to end up going home. And yeah, he didn't take it too well.
Yeah, I guess I could talk about that just because there's a reason I didn't put it in just because of audio issues. But no, yeah, I do think it is interesting to wonder if Cam does end up picking Cooper, if Leia actually lets that happen.
Right.
So that's very interesting. But also, Cooper, he knows all the information that week, especially with, his relationship with Leia.
Yeah.
So he kind of screws Leia over too. So yeah, really everybody had a part in that. But let's get to Cam.
And I still also, just a little side note, I don't know why Cooper and Leia weren't working more together that week. Obviously, at the time, I had no idea that they were friends, so they could have totally voted me out if they were on the same page.
Well, the whole thing with their relationship, it was very different than you and Thal, because you guys were roommates and you were never going to lie. They were still distinctly playing, very individual games outright. Right. Not only because they were on different tribes, but also because of just their personalities and what they wanted to do. And they talk about it in the show of like, they do lie to each other at some point because they want to get a leg up. Like Cooper lies to Leia so that the Neelas can have the opportunity to have numbers at the merge so he can go either way. And then that leads to him like wanting to flip a week down the line just so he can have his Neela numbers. Whereas Leia's like, hey, I'm going to lie to Cooper now so that, we can get the numbers back on Maison. So at the end of the day, they have a strong alliance, but the real secret alliance that's I think more interesting with Maison is Mitch and Leia, just because those guys aren't really lying to each other as much. It's very interesting. Cooper and Leia were good friends beforehand, and they knowing each other, having that secret definitely creates a bond. But because of their own personalities and stuff, that's why they were, I think, working 100% on the same page all the time. They're huge game players, and they weren't gonna, they had their own agendas from day one. So yeah, this Cam. So this Cam thing. So after he gets voted off, Cam goes to get his torch snuff, and I snuff his torch, and he says something along the lines of just like, "Hey, everyone, by the way, like Tarowski promised me final two, like he's a rat," or something like that. Like, something very quickly tarnishing your name.
Yes, and I haven't seen him since that day.
Right. After that happened, I would have loved to included that, but the issue was the audio on it was non-existent. You just see a couple faces going like, ugh, like you going like, oh, like I don't know, and that was great. But we would have no I couldn't even subtitle it. It was that bad. The audio was just not there, and I'm so sad I couldn't include that. But also there was no consequence of that because like nobody in a single confessional besides you talked about it afterwards. No one cared that he blew up on you like that. And I think it's also Maison didn't have the opportunity to care because they were now down numbers.
Right, and I think it played at least a little bit of a part in. Come the merge, I was seen as such a big villain, even though I was kind of sticking true to Neela and I was the one that got flipped on. Everyone knew because of Cam that I had the capability to lie whenever I wanted to. And that I was someone to. I think that had something to do with it because also from what I've heard, Cam texted all the Maisons something like, "Whatever you guys do, don't let Tarowski win," or something along those lines. And then, oops.
That's kind of not good and against the rules.
Oh well.
Oh man. Okay. Speaking of oops, because at some point Paul says oops, let's get a Thal and Tarasky check in at this point in terms of your guys' relationship. So you're coming into the merge now with numbers. Something you've already talked about is you're working on this relationship with Liz, kind of. That she has her own agenda with kind of Cooper, but you kind of talk with her a little bit. There's a line of communication. There's a bunch of different relationships going on, but what is your thing with Thal at this point? You're meeting up again. Sorry, I'm sorry. Okay. Anyways, tell me about your relationship with Thal.
I mean, it's as strong as ever. I'd say it didn't change throughout the whole game. It was 100% the entire time, from beginning to end. And not only him, but still with the rest of the Neelas, it was my objective during the double tribal to make sure that all 6 of us made it to the merge. And that's why I wanted to make a plan where I only had to use one idol at my own tribal, so that I could give one to them to save all of us.
Right. So now you're at the merge.
Wait, should we talk for a sec about like the idol stuff at the double tribal, or like the splitting of the votes?
Sure, actually. Yeah. So we know why the votes get split, because obviously about potentially an idol.
Yeah.
Because it becomes pretty obvious from a lot of people's perspective that Leia has this idol, the way people are talking about it. So then you split it, and that was in the end a very smart move, or else all votes are going to be null and void. I think I guess the question would be, because everybody has seen everything else,
right?
Thal gets that idol. Talk about that time in between the tribals, like what goes on there, passing off. This is very interesting.
Yeah. So, I knew I would probably end up playing one idol. So my plan going into that night was the 3 of them are going to vote for Angela. I'm going to play my idol on Angela. Leia's going to then have to play her idol on herself. And then Cam will be out. I'll give Thal an idol for them to use. But since I didn't know, you can never know for sure, there was a chance that if either Leia didn't play the idol, or if she played it on someone other than herself, I would have been spooked out and I would have played my second idol for myself. That was my plan. If it didn't go exactly the way I was thinking, I would have played the second idol on myself.
So then what would happen with Thal? What would Thal be doing on the other side?
Right. So we agreed that if I had an idol left over, that I would text him a place that I left it for him to pick up and use. And it ended up being in the back of some pickup truck that was in the parking lot. And
some random pickup truck.
Yeah, some random car. Could have driven off in the meantime. But it didn't, thankfully. And Thal went to that pickup truck, took the idol out, and then used it.
Wow, I can't even imagine if it drove off and you would have been like, I probably would have been like, you don't have it. So,
yeah.
I was there to record a little bit of that. Quick question. Does Thal flip on Neela if he doesn't have an idol going into that second tribal?
Yes. Yeah, Akshay would have been out.
Interesting. Okay, so Akshay goes. So yeah, because he's already shown that he would do it anyways. He knows he's not going to rock.
That was our plan.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So you pass this off. Yeah, it seemed like one by there was a little bit of a meeting as well.
Yeah. There was also, because I was still keeping it a secret that it was me that had the second idol. The Neela group had agreed that we would have a bunch of one-on-one meetings of all different combinations of people. And at one of these meetings, the idol will be passed. At one, and no one else is going to know. In between the 2 tribals. But as it turns out, I didn't even give it to him in our meeting because people were still standing around. I ended up giving it to him in that pickup truck.
I was there, and it was so funny. I'm like, this is so dumb. Like, I can't believe you guys just hand in the idol.
Yeah.
Oh my god. So yeah, Thal gets it. He plays it, and the rest is history. Except Then the next episode, obviously, something else happened. So you have the merge. There's many questions I could ask about this. The merge itself, you're looking at me for like 5 hours to try to find a clue.
I'm like, dude, where's the clue? Where's the clue? Where's the clue?
I'm like trying to zip, and you're like in my face the whole time, and I'm like, get out of my way, like I'm filming, which is hilarious. Meanwhile, I already know that Cooper's got it, and so yeah, it was like hectic, chaotic. We have the entire week. We've already talked about this extensively. You guys have talked about this as well in the Computer Torture podcast, but in terms of the end of this week, after everything's been said and done, it's pretty obvious, you believe what Mitch is saying, you believe what other people are saying. The natural progression is we need to, the only thing we can really do is flip on Cooper.
Yeah.
At the end of this week, what happens like the last day?
Right.
What's going on? What is your game plan? And then last thing I want to know is just about that meeting with Akshay.
Yeah. Okay. Before I answer, I'm going to blow my nose. Excuse me.
Okay. Well, mute yourself. Mute yourself first, Russ.
Nope.
Your mic is right here.
Oh, sorry. All right. Okay. Now, that day. So, definitely the craziest day of the whole semester for me. So, I knew at the beginning of the day I was going to vote for Cooper. From all of the things that Mitch had been telling me and what you see in the show, I was totally committed to flipping. And so there was a Neela 6 meeting at the beginning of the day to come up with the person we were voting out. I don't even remember who it was. I think it was Liz. I don't even know for sure. It didn't matter because it ends up no one was going to vote for her. And so
I got a meeting.
Right. And I had texted Cooper and Akshay before that meeting saying, hey, let's stick around after. I want to talk to you guys. And you see this conversation in the show where I'm saying, look, guys, I know that you've been hearing a lot of things this week, but that's just the Maisons trying to mess with us. Just know I had 2 idols. I used them specifically to save everyone in Neela. I would not have done that if I didn't want to stay Neela strong. I am Neela strong, and I just tried to hammer that into their brains. And I guess Akshay, who was at the beginning of the day was going to vote for me, I guess he took that conversation to heart, because after we left, I got a text from him saying, hey, we need to talk. Could be about saving you. And I was like, oh my God, of course. And I run to the other. This is like, as soon as I get home from this, then I get this text. And I immediately go straight back to the other side of campus to meet with him, where he tells me, I was talking to Cooper, and Cooper's really close with Liz, and he's saying that he would rather you go home than Liz. So he was going to vote for you. But if you can switch the vote to, say, Brittany or Mitch, then he would probably vote for that person instead of you. So he's like, you should talk to Cooper and try to switch it to Brittany. So that's exactly what I did. So I called Cooper and I said, hey, I'm just thinking, like, maybe we should switch it to Brittany instead. I don't even remember the reason I gave. But Cooper was like, no, I think we should leave it at Liz. No big deal. Which obviously conflicted with what Akshay told me. So I called Akshay back after that, and I was like, hey, Cooper wasn't okay with it. What's up with that? He's like, damn, he must just be voting for you no matter what, which was what was happening. So at that point in the day, this is probably early afternoon, I know for sure I have 5 votes against me.
Right.
The 4 Maisons and Cooper, I know all of them are definitely voting for me. And so the rest of the day is me whipping the votes, me and Thal, trying to get everyone to vote for Cooper instead. So obviously,
Kira and Angela are planning on voting for like Liz still?
Yeah. Or no. It was everyone. So Kara and Angela were also in on the Cooper plan to vote for Cooper. Wait, no.
Before.
Wait, no. Wait, sorry, I'm mixing things up.
I think what had happened was you guys had a meeting, like you had the big meeting, and you decided on like Liz.
Yeah.
And I believe even Angela kind of knew about votes going towards you and was maybe
Right. Yes, that's exactly it.
right.
Yes. So
I didn't include this, but this happened.
yeah. So I was going to say, so me, Thal, and Kara, that wasn't hard to get people to get the three of us to vote for Cooper. So that's 3 votes against Cooper. The hard ones were Angela and Akshay. Now, Angela, as you were about to say, she since the double tribal had been talking to Thal, who was more of the point person and talking to her about, hey, Tarowski is a really big threat now. We should probably consider getting him out sooner rather than later. And Thal, of course, always played along with it.
Right.
And then later in the day, when Thal was telling Angela, Cooper's voting for Tarowski, we have to vote for Cooper, Angela was saying, well, why don't we just let Tarowski get voted out? That's probably not a bad thing for us. And so Thal had to do what he could to convince Angela to instead vote for Cooper. Instead, I don't know if she was ever going to, I think she at least floated the idea of why don't we just vote for Tarowski too. But
you had just played an idol on her.
Yeah, had just played an idol on her,
right,
for sure.
Right.
But even still, she was willing to let me go home. And of course, she didn't know that I knew this. She didn't know that I knew this the whole time. And Thal ends up convincing Angela, let's vote for Cooper.
So you got 4 now.
So I got 4 now.
4 to 6.
Yes. And the last person I have to convince, ironically, is the person that tipped me off about Cooper in the first place, Akshay. And conveniently, that day, we got our Amazon Immunity Idols in the mail with perfect timing. And
unreal. Same day.
Yeah, and we were thinking for a while, what can we do with these things? How can I possibly convince Akshay to vote for his closest ally? It seemed like so far-fetched. And eventually I came up with this idea of this is how I'm going to use the fake idol to convince him to vote with me. I'm going to promise to give it to him if he does so. Now, it's important to note that with both Akshay and Angela, obviously, because we were convincing them to tie it instead of making a majority,
right.
which in theory is a really stupid thing. But our thought process was that there is no way the Maisons will go to Rocks for Cooper. So as long as we can tie the votes against Cooper, they'll flip on the revote, and we're going to be sitting pretty. Similar logic to this season. There was that tribe on the real show. There was that tribal where the 2 tribes both went, and then one tribe voted for Wendy, knowing that everyone was going to flip on her. So that's exactly what we were thinking at the time. Cooper was Wendy in that scenario. Yeah,
a weird
comparison. And I still to this day am pretty shocked that they went to Rocks for him. But basically, yeah, that was our whole pitch to them. Was all we need to do is tie it because they barely know him. So why would they go to Rocks for him?
But at the end of the day, I guess now, and they've talked about this, post game in different in different interviews with Keep Your Torch Lit or with me and stuff like that. It's just the idea was if they don't do this now, they're screwed for the rest of the game.
Yeah, and it worked out for them. So kudos to them. It's something. Sure. Yeah, it's something I would have never ever done, but it did work out for them.
Plus, Leia's never going to go.
Of course.
Right. She's got immunity, and she's not going to let that.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, no matter what.
But she could. But she can't prevent them from on the actual revote itself.
Sure. Yeah. Right. You're right. In deliberations, obviously, she was going to let it happen. But yeah. So there could be someone. If anyone was going to do it, it might have been maybe Brittany or something. But again, she was in that mindset of this is it. Go big or go home. We're screwed for the rest of the game if we don't do it now. It's our only chance. Why not? Have the opportunity to do it now. So yeah. So merge. So then I guess going forward, you guys are on the bottom now. Kind of one of the bigger moments of the game where you are. You had at the beginning, you and Thal are kind of you're up there, but there's some plans going on behind your back. Eventually, you rope in Angela. Once the swap happens, you make a big move. And really, this is the first time where you were like very, very in danger of going home, like for sure. You don't have an idol anymore. You don't have any of that stuff. Tell me about what your gameplay was going forward in this time leading up to the Cooper vote. Just kind of this block, because I kind of this is kind of a block of weeks. What was your strategy, and talk about kind of the difference between you and Thal now, because it did seem kind of like you were distancing yourself.
Yeah. Well, I remember knowing right away, like literally within minutes of Kara drawing the rock, that I cannot give Akshay this actual fake idol, because this is what's going to save me. Are you still there? All right, there you are.
Hi, sorry, I'm charging.
Yeah, well, I'll make sure I'm actually talking to somebody. So yeah, I knew, because I mean, 5 people had just voted for me twice. So they weren't going to vote with me at the final 9. So it was no use even trying to get them to save me. I knew that what I needed to do was play down my threat level, not even play it down, just not even talk to them. I believe I had one with the Maisons plus Cooper. I had one conversation with any of them all. Wait, that's actually not true. But I had one strategic conversation with them, and that was me talking to Cooper saying, hey, you should flip back. And he was like, no way. But that's it. I didn't talk to Liz. I didn't talk to Leia. I didn't talk to Brittany. I did talk to Mitch. It wasn't really, that's a non-important thing. But actually, I'll just say it. So I did pitch to Mitch that, Mitch the snitch, getting the pitch. I said to him that I was like, you don't need to vote with me, but yeah. This wasn't in the show, but I told him at the week of the final 9, I said, if you vote out the other 3 Neelas, Thal, Akshay, and Angela, if you vote them all out before me and I make the final 6, then you get my jury vote.
Right.
And not only will you get my jury vote, but I will campaign for you as hard as I can. And it turns out he was having none of it, but he didn't tell me that at the time. He was just like, oh, I'll consider it. But yeah, that ends up in the grand scheme of things not being a very important conversation. Right. So the only strategic one I have is with Cooper. And I remember feeling safe at the final 9 votes because putting myself in their shoes, I would not have voted for me, because the idol was just, or the potential idol was just too risky. Especially, as it turns out, none of them had found the real one. Maybe if they did, they would have known mine was fake. But
Cooper cannot find an idol for his life.
Yeah, for real. But I used that plan for the final 9, and then obviously it was fake since I didn't play it. So then at the final 8, my strategy had to totally change. Right. And that's where my new Maison relationship with Liz came in handy, because I knew that she had to have been on the bottom out of the 5 of them, just because she was the biggest jury threat. Even though this is still the final 8, so it's still relatively early on in the post-merge, and people don't know exactly who the jury threats are yet, because there's only 2 people on the jury. It was at least obvious that everyone liked Liz, and so no one was going to want to go to the end with her. And having already had a relationship with her pre-merge, she was the person I targeted. And so I basically got her on my side for the final 8, and then she campaigned for me to her alliance, and they saved me. And then at the final 7, it was all hell had broken loose, and no one was even considering me.
Right. It was because it was basically like the idea for some people was like, hey, if we keep them in, then like we'll never turn on each other, because we'll eventually vote out Thal and Trask no matter what. It was just them. But
and then they both turned on each other anyway.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. But then Liz and Cooper both had the idea of using you guys, so they were going to play up that idea of turning on you, but then using you. So like Cooper was talking to Thal a lot and wanted to use Thal, and eventually does end up using him, and it at the end turns on him. And Liz wants to use both of you to kind of to an extent as shields,
right? Which was really smart of her,
right? Yeah. So you have all the Neelas go. You have now this, it's been talked about a lot, but this crazy week. And it's kind of hard to break down. This is kind of more something I would probably talk about with Thal, because he was at the forefront of all of what was going here. We have this crazy week with Cooper going home at the end. You have all the different ideas. If you want a more in-depth look, we'll have that interview with Thal, and also you can read, or you can listen to the Keep It Torchlit podcast with you guys, the finale podcast. But then the big moment, really in my eyes, is after the Cooper vote. Obviously you're trying to stay out of it all so that it's not you, and then it's somebody or an idol gets played or something like that. And at the end, you guys got very, very lucky with what Thal was doing. And again, we'll talk about it with Thal. But I think it's afterwards the big moment is the relationship that you and Thal then solidify with Liz. I think that's really this big thing, because if that moment happens and then, Liz regresses in any way and goes back to Maison, game's over, one of them wins.
Right.
Because you had that prior relationship with, then, and Thal obviously has the secret relationship with their beforehand. It makes that it's Liz moment so much more impactful, but it also saves your guys' butts. Like, you were using her as a shield just as much as she was using you two.
Yeah, for sure. And it's worth saying that at the final 7 that whole week, what Liz was telling Thal was, all right, we vote out Cooper or Mitchell, whoever this week, and then the final 6, we still have to vote out Tarowski.
Right, exactly.
And he was obviously feeding me all that at the time. But then once the whole final 7 actually went down and she was voted for 3 times and then twice more on the revote, there was no way she was going to end up working with them again. But until that actually happened, she was still willing to turn on me.
Right. So once you solidify it, that's the big moment of like, okay, this could actually happen. And it does happen for like half a vote. So that's
what longer though. It felt because, the 3 of us, we did become, obviously me and Thal were already friends, but me and Liz and Thal and Liz all became really good friends really quickly, and still to this day we are. But I remember just it was a really, really strong alliance, even though it was pretty short-lived, pretty much as strong as it could get in that amount of time.
Right.
And it really sucks the way it turned out.
So tell me about that. Again, this is more on a Thal interview.
Yeah.
What is your, you guys didn't realize that this was going to happen. You thought maybe the best bet might be to have the idol on Thal just in case. You never thought it would go down like this. What is your reaction during Tribal? And do you, what happens during deliberations? And do you have any idea if Thal's going to flip and make you go to Ross?
Sorry, Liz, but we had planned for exactly that scenario, just in case.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I can talk a little more about everything we planned. So Thal was convinced all week that that Leia and Brittany would vote separately for Mitch. That like Mitch was voting for maybe one of us, and that Leia and Brittany were voting for Liz. He was sure of it. But he said that he was saying that he was like 90% sure of that, and like the 10% chance he was wrong, he thinks they're voting for him, so just in case we should play the idol on him. And that's what he told Liz.
Right. Because either Brittany and Leia,
yeah, he could talk more about that in his interview, but he basically, the conversations he was having with her, he thought they were using like reverse psychology on him, and that they actually were targeting him the whole time, potentially. Again, he was still almost positive that they were going to vote separately, and that the 3 of us would just have a plurality and vote out whoever we wanted. But in his mind, on the off chance he was wrong, he might as well get the idol played on him just in case.
Right.
So, knowing that the idol's going to be played on Thal, me and Thal still had to prepare for every situation. So I'll run through them. The first scenario is they actually do split the votes, in which case the three of us vote out whoever we want. The second scenario, they vote for Thal. The three of them vote for Thal. Those votes are all canceled out. We still vote out someone. The next scenario is the three of them vote for Liz, and you saw what happens there. But another interesting scenario that we planned for was if the three of them vote for me. So what we had planned was, so Thal called Liz earlier that day, the day of Tribal, and basically told her the reverse of what happened with me and her switched places. So he told Liz, like, hey, if they vote for Tarowski, we probably shouldn't risk going to Rocks. However, we could always flip on the discussion instead of the revote. But in that scenario, he actually wouldn't have flipped on the discussion, and he would have made Liz go to Rocks. So basically just the reverse of what happened with Liz in that situation instead of me.
What happens if, say, one of either you or Thal get 3 votes? Liz ends up playing the idol on herself.
But I'm saying, like, we knew for sure that Liz was playing the idol on Thal.
Okay. So under that is
yeah. So since Liz was playing the idol on Thal, we both knew that both of us were safe no matter what.
Right.
Because for all the 4 scenarios I just ran through, we knew that no matter what, both of us were in the final 5. Because as long as Thal gets that idol, he's obviously immune, and then we had all these ways of saving me in any case. So even though I was a little skeptical at the time that they would have voted for Thal, because I thought that, like, I thought that Liz and I, at the time, I thought that Liz and I were bigger jury threats, so why would they vote for Thal? I did take comfort in knowing I was safe. And so that's why I didn't really object to it.
Interesting. So it's basically like guaranteed safety is the main reason why you make sure Thal gets the idol. Interesting. Okay.
And also, just on top of, I did trust his intuition. Since he was sure his plan was going to work, I had faith in him that it was going to work, and so I let it happen.
Yeah,
which was probably bad on my part, but whatever.
Oh man, you've talked about what would happen if you end up going to Rocks and stuff.
It would have been just a civil war.
I would have. Oh man. I mean, I think eventually you guys would come back together at the end of it all, but I think see you two that mad at each other would have been so juicy. I still love the moment itself just because of the context of Liz and Paul's relationship.
Yeah.
If he sends you guys to Rocks and you don't go home, that's something to see right there. If you go home, you guys might not even be friends. But if it's, so that'd be insane. Last couple things I wanted to touch on. It's pretty obvious once you win, immunity at Final 5, it's probably Thal going home. Your only option really at the end of the day is Brittany. Did you have any inkling if she might actually flip, or were you just going under the assumption that, hey, this might be it, and although I feel bad that I won, I'm so glad I did. You even gave me a freaking hug. I'm like, I can't hug you right now. Like, I am an unbiased host, and I am not happy for anyone to win specifically. You can't be doing this, and you're like, screw it, I'm gonna do it. I'm like, all right, I'll just Probst it. I'll give it to them.
Yeah, Probst gives people's hug.
Probst does do it, so I was like, all right, whatever.
But yeah, I definitely knew that it was a huge long shot for Brittany to vote for us. But as you have told me after the fact, she actually was very close to doing it. So maybe you want to talk about that for a sec?
Yeah, if Brittany is probably going to be doing an interview with me as well, so that's a big question. I want to talk to her about that.
Yeah.
But as a quick little maybe preview for that, Brittany went back and forth many times that week. She had a lot going on in her head, and like she said, she did not get much sleep. She was thinking about it 24/7. This is do you hear this?
Yeah, I'm gonna plug in my computer. What's up?
Coffee shop, and of course it's going to happen. A nice day at home.
anyways, yeah, Brittany, that was a big thing of discussion in her head. And after all these different interviews, she did settle on voting Fallout, but there's a possibility she might not. But she basically, again, I don't want to put words in your mouth, so maybe I should wait for her. But yeah, it was basically Valiant Brittany and for you guys. So yeah, Fall ends up going. Last two big questions I have for you.
Okay.
One. I know you didn't actually wear the diaper, so I'll put that out there.
Yeah.
But during that last immunity challenge, did you think you could outlast Mitch? And did that factor into the deal that you accepted?
Right.
I guess talk about that deal.
Yeah, I'll start by saying that had I not taken the deal, I would have, of course, stayed on that stupid statue as long as humanly possible. I mean, I would have done it all day, all night, all next day, however long. That being said, I was so cold and Mitch just looked so solid that he would never step down, that my thinking was that as long as I know for sure he's telling the truth, I have a 50% chance against Leia at whatever the final four tiebreaker challenge is. And I feel like now against Mitch in this challenge, I have a less than 50% chance. And so that's why I chose to take the deal.
Right.
But before I did, I had to make sure that he was telling me the truth. I had to make him swear on everything he's ever loved. And I had to walk him through the logic of, if you screw me right now, I will make sure the jury never votes for you, for sure. And I ended up being confident that he was telling me the truth.
Right. There was a lot of input in there. It was a longer
time.
Yeah,
it was really long. I believe he gave me like a 2-hour time limit to accept the deal.
Yeah. It only took about like 20 minutes or so for you guys to actually accept the deal. But he did give you 2
No, that's
hours.
not true.
Really?
No. It took me like almost the full 2 hours.
Really? Are you sure?
Yeah. Definitely.
My mind's whacked out because I was also cold as hell that entire time.
No, it definitely took me like almost until the deal was expired.
Wow. I don't even remember that. Maybe I don't have footage for that. That's why. Wow. Okay. Well, yeah, no, I some people were confused online, but yeah, I mean, I believe you just thought for sure, especially knowing Mitch's game, that he would not, do something like that, especially if he knows that he's pretty solid. Like, why would he make this deal if he's not? Again, why would he make this deal? But
unfortunately for him.
So then the other question I had for you was going into this last vote, or not this last vote, the jury, going into the jury phase. Did you have a pretty good idea of where everyone was voting? Like, did you think that you might have a lot of votes? Like, did you think it was your game to lose? Or did you think that, you really had to step up your game in order to get everybody?
Yeah, I did. I knew I did.
It was a very big Neela jury for sure.
And of course, that's a big part of it. It was predominantly Neela jury. It was all people that I knew and was friends with the whole game. Just
walking through is kind of an interesting part of it.
Walking through person by person, I knew for sure. I knew 100% for a fact. Thal, Liz, Kara, and Angela were voting for me. So that's 4 votes. That's all I needed. So I knew I won the game. So, yeah, I did. But I would say that Akshay and Cooper, I was like 75% sure on both of them. I thought I would probably get them, but I definitely wasn't sure about it. But even so, those other 4 people, I knew I was getting all their votes. And I think
the only problem would have been if Liz ends up voting for, in terms of her longer friends, in terms of Brittany or Mitch.
Maybe, but and not, I don't want to speak for Liz or anything, but I mean, me and Liz became really good friends really quickly, like I said. And I knew she was going to vote for me.
Gotcha. I definitely do think, like, with that kind of a Neela jury, that it was a little bit of your game to lose, especially after Mitch ends up voting and Brittany ends up voting Liz out. I think Liz is kind of that maybe not so solid vote at the end to get that fourth for sure vote. But wait, wasn't it? Didn't you need 5 to win?
No, I needed 4.
Yeah, you
There were
needed
7 jurors.
Yeah, there were 7 jurors. Okay, yeah. So yeah, I think going into that, me personally and Claire were thinking like, okay, it all really comes down to Liz, and is she, in what way is she hurt, or will she be thinking about certain things? Because again, Thal is as big as this as you are in terms of getting Liz's vote, because you two both kind of together are the reason she goes home. And then I guess Mitch and Brittany are also the reason she goes home. So we were thinking about Brittany.
Yeah. No, I was going to say also, I mean, I don't know if I should point this out, but I mean, at the Final Four challenge, when I won, I mean, the jury all cheered.
Right. So
I knew they wanted me to win.
It wasn't fully in there, but from the video you can kind of see there was like a little bit of like people were really, it was an underdog story, and so they kind of wanted that on the jury. Not every single person cheered, but there was, I think, even Akshay was cheering at some point. But yeah, I don't think it was super set in stone, because afterwards people have told me also, like, even in their little confessional thing, Cooper was still very, I mean, he wanted to vote for you, but he wanted to make sure your questions were correct. Akshay was a little bit the same way, where he was like, he's listening. Everyone was still there. I'm not trying to like BS this and in a way that's like it was to the last wire, but there was, I mean, me even personally, I was very whatever. But yeah, when you kind of bring a blue suit to final travel, you had a little bit of an inkling.
I just want to say I was planning on wearing that suit to final if I made it to the end the entire time. And it just so happens that it was Neela blue. And then, of course, I had to wear the matching Neela buff, which may or may not have been jury pandering. But, yeah.
Amazing. Well, other than that, that's I have most of my questions out there. Is there anything specifically that you have that you wanted to share that I didn't really get to touch base on?
Yeah, let's talk. Can we talk about people, my relationships with certain people, or what I thought of them?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's just throw out a couple names that you want to talk about.
I don't know.
Don't trash anyone, by the way.
No, of course not. Only in confessionals. I'll start with Lavana because, and I'll say Akshay too. I was sure going into the show that like Lavana and Akshay were the 2 stars of the show, and that the rest of us were just side characters. I mean, they're both so amazing and hilarious, and I also think that Neela as a whole, like I was saying before, we were having so much fun together. It really was, I thought, just such a dynamic and entertaining group. I mean, Lavana walks into a room and commands everyone's attention like few people I've ever met. And I mean that in a good way. I remember being absolutely fascinated by her from day one. And Akshay too. Akshay's hilarious. Yeah, who else? Should we talk about everyone?
Yeah, the coffee place is like closing, so I have to go to second. But I do want to know, at the end of the day, did you still have respect for Cooper's game while you were still in the game? Like, did you understand?
Yeah, of course. I mean, also, it turns out he was friends with Leia, which I had no idea at first.
Right.
Oh. Also, I should talk about. So at the merge idol hunt, when Liz ends up finding it, so a few of us are looking around, and I'm kind of standing next to Cooper, and this girl comes up to Cooper, and I'm turned away from them, but they're like within earshot of me, and she's like, where's Leia? This girl that I didn't know. She's like, where's Leia? And I was like, what? But I basically knew then and there that Cooper and Leia were friends before the game. Right. And it all just came together at once because I remember earlier in the game, me, you, and Fall were talking, and we were talking about how we kept our relationship a secret from you earlier.
Right, which I was mad about.
Right, but we were saying how, you know, we were afraid that you would only pick one of us, and you said something like, "What? It would have made me want to pick you guys more," or something.
Right, because it was a very interesting dynamic.
Yes, and then once you said that, later that day, Thal was like, "Hey, dude, if George would have been so excited for us two to know each other and be in the game, is there a chance that he was excited about other people potentially knowing each other in the game?" And I was like, dude, you're thinking way too much into this, dude. No fucking way. Forget about that. And then when I heard whoever that was ask Cooper where Leia is, it all came crashing down at once.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my God, Thal was right.
I can't believe that.
And then all of a sudden, Cooper's whole strategy made sense to me.
Right.
Whereas it didn't fully before.
And again, there wasn't much, not only confessionals about it, but it wasn't really a big deal to a lot of people when both secret relationships were revealed in terms of,
which is, of course, still crazy to me.
Insane that both sides. But, in terms of, we've talked about why it wasn't crazy for you guys. On the other side of things, when Brittany, Liz, other people start finding out that Cooper and Leia are together or knew each other, they weren't going to do anything about it because they needed them. Like at that time, when they find out, they need those numbers, so they're not going to be like, hey, they just, in the back of their mind. It is what, again, kind of adds to Liz's distrust for Cooper. But yeah, at the end of the day, sadly, there wasn't a really big, huge repercussion for those relationships being exposed. Other than that, that's basically it. I have one final question. It's the most important question before we go. It was, thrown at me by my girlfriend, Sarah. It is the most important question. It is, and you have to, I didn't even, I didn't predict this would happen, but you're even wearing it right now.
Yes. We haven't talked about this. I know the fans wanted to see it. And so
she wants to know, where did you get the Boys Make Me Sad hoodie?
It's merch for a band I like. The band is called Brockhampton. It was during the Survivor semester. I ordered it. It was
just like Amazon.
Yeah, just like the Idols. And it came, and then probably right away I wore it in my confessionals.
It's
I love this thing. I wear it all the time.
So good. It is so. I got maybe a million. Like after the episode came out, it was a really big episode, but I got half of the questions and comments were about like, I want that. Like, where did you get that? Like, I want it too. Like, it's really good. But yeah, do they make it still or no?
I don't know. It was for one particular like merch drop. I don't know if there's maybe still some around that you can maybe cop.
Yeah. Or maybe we could just make it ourselves, but it's so good. Yeah. It's so good.
I love it.
Well, anyways, that's a wrap for you, Tarasky, and your interview. This has been very exciting. There's a lot we had to talk about. I guess you were winner.
And there could have been so much more too. I feel like we only scratched the surface.
I don't think that people are going to be watching an 8-hour podcast, though. I would be game for it, but I got to get in what I can and what I've been asked. But thank you so much for taking the time with me. Thank you
for having me.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks everybody else. Thanks everybody else for coming on and watching this as well. I know Tarasky put a lot into this game, and I'm glad he got to talk a little bit more about it as well. I have other interviews coming up for other people who are very passionate about the game and want to get their voice out there. This was kind of like the deep dive. Tarasky is the one who won, and he had a lot to talk about. The other ones I might put out in batches and have maybe shorter interviews. But you know what, Tarasky, you get the King's treatment. You get the big interview. Maybe it was 2 hours or something like that. So don't let that go to your head, even though
I'll try.
With everything else going to your head anyway. So whatever.
Thanks again for everything.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I need to thank you guys more than anything. You're the one who made the show. I just put the pieces together at the end of it. I don't know how to make the puzzle, but I know how to fit the corner pieces together, basically. So, yeah. So thank you guys, everyone, for watching. I don't know if Tarasky, do you have any like social media you want to promote? I don't even think you have a Twitter, do you?
I don't have a Twitter.
Just stalk him somehow if you want to.
Yeah, you can find me.
Sure. Facebook. That was weird. You can find me. Don't do that.
Guys don't have to message me or anything. I did get messages from a few people on Facebook and Instagram and whatnot throughout the season. Most of them I didn't answer because I wasn't. Because like you can never be 100% sure that the person's not a serial killer, but for like the 1 or 2 people that I thought for sure they weren't going to kill me, I did answer them and they were nice.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
Oh man. Oh, all right. Great talking with you, man.
Yes, you too.
And I will see everybody else soon with another interview. See ya.
All right. Bye.